Hello, this is Wes Bridle, and this is another Kingdom Calling Economic Update video. All of these videos are follow-ons to the coming storm, which we shot in November, which gives a big picture of what is going to be happening in our economy over the coming years. It's going to be a really life-changing thing, and so we encourage you to go and watch that video for free. There's a link right near this video if you have not seen it. That's really important because in these videos we're just doing really small minutia details about what's happening in the last 2 weeks. I'm about to make 3 videos. This one I'm going to focus on hyperinflationary and government debt type of events, and then we're going to work on and talk about just events in the world that I don't really focus on as much in these videos, and then we're going to just talk about depressionary events in the 3rd video we're going to do. So let's jump into it. Again, there's countries all over the world having problems, as we've been talking about. Greece was downgraded to junk. I'm not sure. The ratings agencies seem to be the last ones to actually notice what's happening, but still, that's news. Belgium is added to the list of countries experiencing problems. They have the 3rd highest level of debt of any country in Europe, and so they're starting to struggle a little bit. Ireland and Portugal, their CDS risk, their credit default swap risk is going up, as well as Spain and Belgium. Hungary, the new government came out. There's 2 similar stories on the opposite sides of the world. Hungary came out, the new government, and said we're in trouble of possibly going down the road that Greece went down. And then immediately, of course, that caused panic, and then they started trying to backtrack and take that back. Japan did a similar thing here even more recently. The new Prime Minister of Japan came out and said that the country's in risk of collapse and going the way of Greece. Now, as we talked about before, Japan has 200% of debt to GDP, so they have by far the biggest debt to GDP ratio in the world, but most of it is to their own people, so they're in a little bit different situation. They're not doing as much borrowing on the open market, but their prime minister came out and said they're in serious risk. So this is happening all over the world. Spain, there has been tremendous rumor of Spain going under in the last couple weeks. I think it was BBVA Bank that came out and said that the smaller banks weren't able to access credit on the open market, and so there's been problems in Spain. If Spain were to go under, or Italy, one of these bigger countries that's wobbling, it's going to take down all of Europe. And as a matter of fact, the French financial firm AXA came out and said that there's no chance that the EU bailout is going to work. So just to give you an idea, that's the road we're heading down. I saw a really interesting quote. Andrew Mellon, who was the Secretary of the U.S. Treasury all through the 1920s, under different presidents, at the beginning of the Great Depression, this is an exact quote, but because the quote was longer, but he said that what the government needed to do is just liquidate everything. He's talking about liquidating farms, liquidating banks, just massively purging everything. He said that would get the junk out of the system, and it would cause people to go back and live more moral lives, and everything, the whole system would just get stronger and everything would get better. Well, the country didn't like that. There was impeachment hearings, or at least, I don't know if it was the other party. I don't know which party he was in, but whatever happened, there was impeachment hearings. He ended up quitting in order to not have to be impeached. But then after a decade of Great Depression, you look back and you think, well, actually he was right. His way probably would have been a better way. We see ourselves sitting in this exact same situation now, where there's the difficult situation, which would be the good choice for our government, our people to make, and then there's the way that seems like the easy way out, which is just going to lead to a lot more pain. I just thought that was interesting. Bill Gross, who's people call him the bond king. He runs PIMCO. He's the largest bond manager in the world. Really smart investment guy. Says Obama is taking the nation towards a debt super cycle. That is, debt is about to pass in our country GDP. He says we're about to go into a debt super cycle. It's an extremely dangerous road that we're going down. George Soros, another billionaire investor, says we've entered Act 2 of the global financial crisis, and that this is reminiscent of the 1930s. So sorry for the not so chipper news here, but this is just the reality that we're in. The European Commission President Barroso, he used to be the Portuguese president, now he's European Commission president. He put out a warning last week that the Southern Europe could devolve into military coups, dictatorships, or popular uprisings. That democracy would be gone in Southern Europe if they're not careful because of the situation going on in those countries. So it just gives you an idea of the scariness of these countries. It's interesting reading the article about this. In the 30s, all these countries had these kind of problems, and it hasn't been all that long that a lot of those countries have had democracy. And he's just said it could very easily spiral back into that. So Russia, of course, they've been adding gold every month for a long time now. They also started adding Canadian and Australian dollars. They have, I think it's the third largest reserve holdings of any country in the world. And they don't like the dollar. Now they're getting burned with the euro, so they're looking to add Canadian and Australian dollars. Iran also, there's rumors that they've been adding gold to their holdings. So again, people trying to get away from the dollar, and now for a while people were trying to get into the euro, and now it's been established the euro has big problems too. Greenspan came out recently and said the U.S. will be unable to meet its commitments over the coming decades in real terms. This is a real thing. If you read his comments and you don't really understand economics, it might be difficult to understand. But what he's saying is that the government is going to have to inflate a way to drastically devalue the value of your dollars in order to pay its commitments that it's made. And so this is Greenspan. He's actually one of the guys that got us into this situation, but now he's not running the show anymore, and he's coming out and saying we're in trouble. He said it's looking like we'll have a pending crisis like Greece if something's not fixed. And of course, our politicians aren't fixing anything. Their fixes are actually the things that cause more problems. The U.S. federal deficit is widening. The taxes that the government's collecting are shrinking, and the spending's going up. So the deficit is widening. It's a scary thing. Of course, gold we always talk about as a one way to help fix this problem or steady your assets. There's been billions in the last few weeks flowing into gold ETFs. There's more in the last month than there was during the 2008 financial crisis. So it gives you an idea. There's just massive amounts of money shifting there as people are becoming nervous around the world and wanting to protect their assets. Interesting, Fed Chairman Bernanke got up and said that he didn't understand gold price movement recently, which is just bizarre. I mean, is he lying, or is he that clueless to what's going on? He might be. We know he's totally focused on the depression of the United States and Japan. He's focused on the 1930s Great Depression, Japan in all his studies, and that's all he's focused on. It's hard for me to believe he's that clueless, but he said he doesn't understand what's happening with gold's price. Vietnamese are, this is an interesting story. The Vietnamese are buying, they love gold, and they've had a lot of problems in their country when communists took over, and they learned that having small portable assets like gold are very important. So interesting, they buy more than 2 times as much gold per person as anyone else, and that'd be India, more than 44 times as much as a U.S. citizen. But it was interesting because if you talk about a gold standard, a lot of people have this idea that you can't earn interest on gold, but apparently the Vietnamese banks did have that. They were paying 4.5% here last year on gold holdings held at banks. I thought that was kind of cool. And lastly, Credit Suisse just came out recently and said that they expect $1,300 gold in a few weeks and $1,500 gold by the end of the year. So thanks for watching this update. Again, if you haven't seen the Coming Storm video, I highly recommend you go and watch that for free. It's going to be very important for you and your family. And we'll jump on and do a couple other videos here soon. Thanks, and God bless you.